welcome to the Premier Fantasy Podcast. You are now locked into this podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. Listen and subscribe on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast fix. I'm Jeff Thedoff, Tito they call me, and training camps are underway. We are 2 weeks away from the first preseason game of the season, the Steelers and Cowboys in the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio. The major platforms have already or are about to launch the fantasy football leagues for the season, and it's time now to cram for the drafts. We've already had our first major injury of the season as Cam Akers of the Rams went down with a torn Achilles that will sideline him for the entire season. Akers started slowly as a rookie in 2020, but he finished strong, piling up 221 yards rushing and 51 receiving yards while scoring 3 touchdowns in the postseason. He was expected to play a major role in the Rams' offense again in 2021. The Rams, right now at least, will plan on giving Darrell Henderson Jr. the majority of the work out of the backfield. Henderson had a decent year last year, started off well. In weeks 2 and 3 combined, he racked up 195 rushing yards, 46 receiving yards, and he scored twice. However, as much as I like Henderson, you can bet on the Rams adding at least one veteran back to the fold. The names being thrown around include Adrian Peterson, Todd Gurley, LaShawn McCoy, Le'Veon Bell, and even Duke Johnson. Now, for Gurley, it'd be a homecoming for him. He had his best years of his career with the Rams. He's familiar with the scheme. And for what it's worth, Eric Dickerson's lobbying for the Rams to reunite with Gurley. Gurley doesn't have a lot left in the tank. I think the injuries have worn him down quite a bit. He wasn't spectacular at all last year in Atlanta, and there's a reason he hasn't signed with anybody else yet. Peterson's still chasing a ring, and the Rams are contenders this year, so I'm sure Peterson has interest in them. When any back goes down between now and the early part of the regular season, ADP's name will be mentioned as a replacement. However, the one with the most left in the tank is Le'Veon Bell. He could come in and push Henderson out of the way as the main back in Sean McVay's system, and the high-powered Rams offense, led by Matthew Stafford, will provide plenty of scoring chances for whoever lines up as RB1 in LA. But Bell, in my opinion, is the best option out there among available running backs. Now, with training camps getting going, we also have the start of some significant battles for starting positions, and the one I was going to watch most closely is for the quarterback job in New Orleans. Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston are both hoping to be handed the rose by Coach Sean Payton to take over for retired quarterback Drew Brees. I know Payton loves Taysom Hill, and he said the job's up for grabs. Hill started 4 games while Brees was injured last year. In those 4 games, he had 4 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions. He also rushed for 209 yards and scored 4 touchdowns there. Winston, meanwhile, passed for 5,109 yards and 33 touchdowns for Tampa Bay just back in 2019, not that long ago, although he also had 30 interceptions. I imagine both are going to play to start the season, and Peyton will let the competition kind of sort itself out during the season. Hill played better than I expected him to last season while filling in for Brees. I'm not sold on him yet as an every-week starter. By the way, the number 1 receiver for the Saints, Michael Thomas, during those 4 games that Taysom Hill started, Thomas was targeted 37 times, caught 30 passes for 343 yards. Impressive, but no touchdowns. Now, of course, looking at the success that throwing to Thomas might not be as important right now, with the news that Thomas had ankle surgery and could miss the first 5 games of the upcoming season. Traquan Smith will likely become the number 1 wide receiver now, with Alvin Kamara leading the way in receptions. I could see the Saints signing someone like a Golden Tate, a veteran receiver, to get in there, but I think that this probably, Thomas not playing for the first 5 games, probably makes Hill a little more valuable at quarterback because there's a lack of a big offensive weapon in that offense, and he can make things happen. But watching preseason, we'll watch the news that comes out and see if Hill gets any kind of momentum, or if Winston finds a way to connect with receivers in such a way that Sean Payton decides Winston's got to be the guy. Regardless, though, starting week 1, I think they'll both get playing time. I could see him using Hill in some schemes down by the goal line, or to kind of mix it up once in a while, or if Winston struggles. I think Winston gives him the best chance to win games this year as a whole. Early on, though, Taysom Hill might be the guy who gets the looks in the end zone area to prevent any kind of turnovers from Winston. I think that's what Peyton's going to be looking for. He wants someone he can count on when they get down near the goal line. There's other quarterback battles brewing in New England, San Francisco, and Chicago, although I think the 49ers and Bears will stick with veterans in week 1 over the upcoming rookies. In New England, I give the edge to Cam Newton right now, but keep this in mind. He had just 8 8 passing touchdowns in 15 starts last year and 10 interceptions. He also did rush for 14 touchdowns. Now, Mac Jones from Alabama, he'll have a chance to take the job if Newton doesn't show improvement, although I think Newton could still get opportunities near the end zone or to provide a different look to opposing defenses, a lot like what Taysom Hill might be doing in New Orleans. You could see Mac Jones starting at some point early in the season, but Newton still getting into the game. We'll see. I think week 1, though, your starter is going to be Cam Newton. And I still think Andy Dalton's going to start for Chicago in week 1. Nothing has changed my mind on that one. And also Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco. Support for the Premier Fantasy Podcast brought to you by Manscaped, who's the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. Join the movement for all your below-the-waist grooming needs. Their third-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to advanced skin-safe technology pioneered by Manscaped. When I tell you this is premium, I mean premium. The battery will last up to 90 minutes, so you can take a longer shave. The waterproof technology, that's right, allows you to groom in the shower. That's Manscaped. Go to manscaped.com, enter code TITO. You get 20% off your first order and free shipping. That's manscaped.com, code TITO for 20% off your first order and free shipping.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Books like Stephen King's The Shining or Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If you're on the hunt for book recommendations and enjoy sparkling conversation, come read along with us and then listen in.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations. Conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable. Conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Powell, co-host of the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast. Check us out anywhere you listen to podcasts. For all your Browns coverage, post-game, pre-game, anything you need Browns, you'll find it here on the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast.
And we're back. The Aaron Rodgers saga continues on, and his presence, or lack thereof, will certainly affect the value of Davante Adams and Aaron Jones, along with the entire Packer offense. Sportsbooks in Las Vegas are not allowing you to bet on the Packers right now for their win totals. I believe there's speculation out there that Rodgers will retire before playing for the Packers again, and they have not come close to moving him, it looks like, trading him to another team. They've offered him a lot of money. But the report that the Green Bay offered an extension to Rodgers tells me they don't have a great deal of confidence in Jordan Love. If the Packers did, they would trade Rodgers or let him sit out and not get paid. In the end, I think Rodgers does suit up the Packers this season, but is gone after the season. If he doesn't suit up, expect Davante Adams' numbers to drop off considerably. Not only do the Packers not have much faith in Jordan Love, neither do I. And as we're entering a draft season, I will be closely watching the average draft position for several players, among them first Rodgers. Will fantasy owners try and snag him at a bargain spot and hope he does play somewhere in 2021? I want to see what round he goes in because he could be a steal. Here's why I would take a flyer if he falls far enough. There is lots of depth to be had at the quarterback spot. After the top tier of QBs, Mahomes and Allen from Buffalo, maybe Lamar Jackson's that next one, I guess. But after that, after those top 2 or 3, you've got a bunch of players who can provide great value. I'd be ecstatic if I were able to grab, say, Matthew Stafford and Aaron Rodgers. And I'm going to continue to bang the drum for Matthew Stafford, by the way, and say he is a QB1 this season who will outperform his draft position. He's finally with an offense that has a competent head coach, and it's the best group of weapons he's ever had at his disposal. Robert Woods is going to have a monster season for the Rams this year. Cooper Kupp will as well, and I would keep an eye on the number 3 wide receiver for the Rams because they're going to throw the ball a lot. It'll likely either be Deshaun Jackson or Van Jefferson, but the number 3 receiver for the Rams is also going to have quite a bit of value this year. As far as a running back I'm watching closely, it's Zeke Elliott over in Dallas. Coming off a not great season, that was not a great season all around for the Cowboys, Zeke has reportedly transformed his body and looks cut as he heads into 2021. He said he weighs 218, and he hasn't weighed that since he was a freshman at Ohio State. He is coming off his worst season. His lowest rushing yard total in his career. He played 15 games and still had fewer yards in 2017 when he missed 6 games. This is the 6th year for Zeke, and not many bell cow running backs produce big numbers beyond the first 5 years in the league. Sure, there's exceptions, but it's a risk if you make Zeke your first pick unless you get him down pretty deep in the draft or can grab in the early second round, depending if he falls on what your league's scoring, what your scoring setup is for your league, where Zeke would go. The wide receiver I'm watching in ADP is Brandon Cooks. He's been traded a lot, and we aren't sure who the QB throwing to in Houston will be. Today it looks like it'll be Tyrod Taylor. There's been no movement on the Deshaun Watson front. Cooks won't be a PPR beast, but he does pile up the yards as a deep threat. I won't draft him thinking I have to use him every week in my lineup, but I think I should be able to get him in a spot that has tremendous value. Now let's take a closer look at the tight end position. After Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Darren Waller, who will undoubtedly be the first 3 tight ends off the board in some order, if you miss on them, who can you target? Maybe TJ Hockenson in Detroit. I think he snagged 7 or 8 touchdowns this year, which should make him a top 5 tight end. He doubled his fantasy output from 2019 to 2020. I see another big spike for him as a security blanket for Jared Goff, and I think he'll get open. Like I said, in the red zone, I think you see a lot of looks for TJ Hockenson. One more piece of news from the NFL regarding COVID-19. Commissioner Roger Goodell has said that a team that suffers an outbreak due to unvaccinated players could, and the keyword being could, result in a forfeit. The commission did not say it would absolutely be a forfeit, but if the game can't be reasonably scheduled, then the infected team will get a loss and the opponent an automatic win. Now, there's no word on what would happen if both teams had an issue and were both forced not to play against each other. Anyway, I bring this up only because you may want to have some kind of rule in place for your league if there's a last-minute forfeit. Some suggestions: you can allow teams to submit a substitution list with players that would be inserted in a game if it was canceled, only if it was canceled because of the COVID rule. Another option is the game is canceled, the players affected get their average weekly scoring up to that point in the season, or you take their previous week's scoring points and you put that in there for the week if the game gets canceled because of COVID. So I would keep all that in mind, but try to get ahead in that. I know you've got your drafts coming up. If you haven't done them already, I'd wait as long as possible to do your drafts. We're going to be bombarding you with a lot of information, position by position, coming up. I thank you for tuning in to the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Again, support for this is brought to you by Manscaped, who's the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. They offer precision, engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. This is all part of the Press Play Podcast Network. Thanks for tuning in. You can find me on Twitter at FitHappens. That's at THIT Happens. Send me your questions. I'm more than happy to answer to them. And have a great weekend.